This is part 2 of the series on Satanism and Maghdoub and Dhawalloon. In this part, we talk about how to fight off shaitan in personal life. Remind you of 4:119, where shaitan promised that he will mislead humans by creating dhalala, and then next, he will create empty hope, which is creating lust or desire. Then after that, he will order them to slit ears of cattle. Symbolically, that's mutilation of animals, including themselves, and alter Allah's creation from everything natural to artificial. That's a big threat of shaitan. And Allah alerted us right away that whoever takes shaitan as a guardian instead of Allah has suffered a tremendous loss. So this is the warning. So to recap some of the features of shaitan, so we know how he's going to attack us. He's a master of projection. He told Allah that Allah put him in error. Consider the audacity. And he said, because he had put me in error, I'm going to mislead everybody else, all humans. And he knew at that time that the exceptions will be Allah's slaves that are mukhlis. Mukhlis is an interesting term. It means the ones who are sincere. You see, when you say ad-dinu nasiya, nasiya is rooted in sincerity. So Islam is all about sincerity. And it starts with intention. And that word intention, niya, will come over and over. Because if you have sincere intention, if your intention is really to please Allah, Allah will not abandon you. And you will not be affected by shaitan. And of course, shaitan is not going to give up. Shaitan will always try. But shaitan knows that the mukhlis group, he cannot change them. So the key to success is to be mukhlis, to be sincere. Shaitan is also the epitome of illogical thinking. So repeatedly it will come to us that if you use aql, if you use the Allah's logic, the world logic that Allah has taught us, is this aql, then everything becomes clear. And Allah warned us very clearly that if you do not use aql, that the conscientious logic, then you become the worst of creation. This is quite profound because shaitan attacks our ability to think, use aql. That's precisely what it does. He tries to remove our aql. And once it is removed, then we are messed up. We do not know a recourse because we cannot think it through. Prophet also reminded us that shaitan is a liar, even when he makes a true statement. So there's nothing that we can rely on shaitan to find guidance. Only recently, I mentioned that last week, only recently, I came across this phrase, quite profound. The most tears I have when I remembered how stupid I was. And this is, people don't always think that, oh, I have sinned here, I have sinned there, they remember the sin. But what they should really be regretting is how I could be so stupid. Because you know what? Shaitan's first line of attack is attack on your intelligence. So you cannot use aql, you cannot use logic. And that's why every sin that you have committed could be averted by using logic, by using smart. So every sin is a product of stupidity. And it originates from Shaitan, and it's very clear from what the promise he made. Shaitan will also inflict fear-mongering. He will inflict fear, and fear has no reason. We discussed that last week, that if you know the qadr, that the universal order is fixed, there is nothing you can do to change the life in this life, the life in this on earth. There's nothing, it's all fixed. To have fear like poverty or death or anxiety from what? It has no meaning because it's not going to change. But that's what Shaitan's weapon is. It's not a logical thing, but Shaitan always uses that to invoke you, to incapacitate you. But always, you cannot blame Allah, because Allah repeatedly told us that Allah is forgiving. Allah promises you that you are sincere, you don't have to worry about anything. So that's all you have to remember. Anytime we have whisper, anytime we have doubt, we have fear, uncertainty, anxiety, you just come back to Allah and say, I'm going to ask Allah, because Allah, all He wants is sincerity from me. So I'm going to ask Him. I'm going to put it out to Him. Shaitan wants you to fear his followers. And we always do, in politics, always we are worried about what our boss will think, what the police will think, but we forget that that's the scheme of Shaitan. Shaitan wants us to be afraid of everything, everybody, except Allah. So we have to recognize how Shaitan attacks. And again, one more time, first attack is on dhalala. Dhalala creates illogical thoughts in your mind. You become incapable of using logic. Number two, lust. Lust for what? Sex, money, and control. Number three, animal mutilation. And that would include self-mutilation. But the final one, which includes everything, everything's natural to everything artificial, everything halal and to everything haram. See, there's nothing wrong in this sex, money, control. If you are looking for pleasure, Allah has given you the halal one. And there's, for fact that this is part of qadr. But by forcing yourself to do something or making the intention of illegally obtain these things, you become obsessed with it. And that's why you lose both dunya and akhirah. Nobody is satisfied with this if it is haram. So Shaitan, how he works is he creates a small opening, very small, and it seems to be unimportant. It could be just, I'm going to TikTok, I'm going to just search for this. I'm going to internet, I'm going to search for this. And boom, you go through the rabbit hole and end up in grave consequence at the end, and you cannot get out. It's like, I'm just going to a bar and I'll just stay outside. I'm not going to go in. Certainly, I'm not going to drink. Allah did not say that. Allah did not say, do not do sin. Allah said, do not come close. You cannot just hover around the boundary and say, it's just a little bit. That's when Shaitan gets you. So the idea is, as soon as you recognize that this is not something that will make me closer to Allah. Right away you recognize, you say astaghfir. You say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in Allah from shaitan. And you return to your akal. You return to your consciousness logic. Again, shaitan is the ultimate hypocrite. Prophet describes the future of hypocrite when they speak the lie. And the definition of lie is your intention is not good. That's why even when you are posting a Facebook post or a tweet, you have to check your intention. You're asking a question, why am I asking this? Does it make me closer to Allah? If it doesn't, that's a lie. It doesn't matter what you think. If your intention is not good, it's a lie. That's the classic definition of shaitan, of lies. Shaitan, when he makes a promise, he breaks. When he makes a covenant, he doesn't honor it. When he argues viciously. And last week I mentioned that the most prevalent example of this hypocrite is in so-called Satanist. Every word they say is a lie. And we mentioned that the most important feature of Maghdoub, every word they say is a lie. And have you seen them how they argue? Viciously and without logic. If you ask them simple questions, they become very angry. And they project, they gaslight. All these features are Shaitanic features. Islam versus Shaitanism. Shaitan is an avowed enemy of humans. Allah repeatedly said that. Shaitan cannot be trusted. And he will whisper. Islam is guidance, whereas Shaitan is just the opposite. So guidance comes from Allah. Misguidance comes from Shaitan. So you cannot look to Shaitan, you cannot invoke Shaitan to be guided. And guess what? Allah has only one book. Shaitan has many of them. For every question, Shaitan has an answer. And nowadays, of course, we have ChatGPT and all this other nonsense. They have answer for everything. The moment you're looking somewhere else other than Quran for guidance, not to critique. For instance, if you want to find out if a medicine is halal or not, or if a chemical is halal or not, you have to find out how they are made. I'm not talking about that, but you do not go to other documents, other sites to seek guidance. Guidance, the ability to tell what is true or false, it is in Quran. And the word akal comes into play. Akal is what? Start with Quran in the context of hadith. You may extrapolate to the correct conclusion. Trace of Bani Israel, they are greedy. It's about money. Look up about the lot of New Age documentation on narcissists, how they are. It's primarily greed. Then lust for money, God, and money for money's sake, money for sex, money for control. Money itself is an addiction, but it fuels other addiction like sex and control. They know they get no pleasure out of it, but they are obsessed with it. And that was the trait of Bani Israel. Second one, hypocrisy. If you can remove hypocrisy from your own life, you have it made. So hypocrisy is a very big thing about for Israel. And they asked Bani Israel question, and it's very important. Even at the end, we'll talk about that. If you want to know what kind of Bani Israel questions, what kind of questions they always have underlying premise involved. And they are not well intended. They do not ask questions to get closer to Allah or even solve a problem. They ask questions to create more chaos. Just like narcissists, they love creating chaos. And they takfir on each other group. And that has been going on forever. One group says in Surah Baqarah 113, Yahud say Nasara have nothing. Nasara say Yahud have nothing. They constantly do that. And the most important trait is in Surah Baqarah 85. I looked that up, we talked about it. Why are you discussing this? Because you have to be aware, this is the end game for Shaitan. This is what he's trying to collect people who would collectively create this fitna, this facade. Of course, evidence from Quran that says that they're the greediest. They're the first one to kufr, and they blame each other. So I will sum up the principal difference, the most prominent difference between Shaitan and Prophet Muhammad. As I mentioned, Shaitan is the epitome of antipathy, epitome of lack of empathy, and Prophet Muhammad is the epitome of empathy. So let's compare. Shaitan has zero empathy. That's his first feature. Look up the word narcissist. They're very similar, except Shaitan is always narcissist. He's beyond repair. A narcissist, if it is human, it might come back. We cannot give up hope. Even Prophet had a list of 12 hypocrites. He carried it through. He did not give up. He could have just caught them. He could not. He did not. Because they have a purpose, and we cannot do anything about them. Just like Shaitan. Shaitan is going to whisper. We cannot stop him. But they're there. So Shaitan always lies. Everything about him is a lie. So problem with lies, you cannot catch. Because there are infinite number of lies. So you cannot undo them. That's why it's futile to get into an argument. Because there is no basis. Prophet Muhammad never lied. Shaitan never apologizes. It's not there. You see the followers of Shaitan, every once in a while, they will apologize, but it's not sincere. Seamless, sincerity is lacking. On the other hand, Prophet Muhammad would say astaghfir, which is asking for forgiveness 70 times in one sitting. He was a perfect man. He was created by Allah as an example for mankind until the day of judgment. Yet he was asking for astaghfir 70 times in one sitting. Completely opposite. Shaitan is narcissistic. He is obsessed with himself. Prophet Muhammad is the epitome of love for Allah. Shaitan is narcissist. He's obsessed with himself. Prophet Muhammad is obsessed with Allah. Real love. He was in love with Allah. And we are supposed to be the same. As a matter of fact, if we do not love Allah and His Prophet more than ourselves, we do not go to heaven. And it's not a joke. It's real. So that's the example we have to follow. Shaitan is easily bored. We quite often say, I'm bored. This is purely from Shaitan. He's always looking for next victim. Prophet Muhammad was never bored. At no time he said, oh, I have nothing to do. What am I going to do? Let's look it up. Let's listen to some TikTok. It was not there, and it is not there. It's completely opposite to Shaitan. Shaitan needs people to build excitement. He needs people. Prophet Muhammad needed nobody. Shaitan gets pleasure in deceiving. Prophet Muhammad got pleasure out of pleasing Allah. Pleasure you get out of pleasing Allah is real pleasure. It gives you contentment. It gives you peace. Quite often you deceive people and you feel good about yourself because, I made money or I cheated him or whatever. But deep inside, you are burning. It does not give you contentment. Shaitan makes his own rule. Prophet Muhammad never made a his rule. He always follows and executed Allah's rule. Shaitan is incapable of loving anybody, including himself. So when you hear people saying, oh, he loves me, or simply ask, is it a real moment? Most often, of course not. See, it's a delusion. You forget that Shaitan always lies. Shaitan is incapable of loving anyone, including himself. If you love yourself, would you be able to put yourself in that position where you are going to the bottom of hell just because you can get the pleasure of deceiving people? It's completely illogical. Prophet Muhammad loved everybody with the greatest love for Allah. And because of his love for Allah, he was loving Allah's creation, including all humans. Shaitan is incapable of respecting anyone. See, respect belongs to Allah. Then it belongs to Prophet Muhammad and the most righteous slaves. How can you have respect for anybody if you do not have respect for Allah, which Shaitan did not have? Again goes, you need the Iman to be able to have respect anybody. If you don't have Iman, you have no respect for anything. Shaitan has zero akal, absolutely nothing, completely crazy without being mentally ill. Prophet Muhammad was the epitome of akal. Shaitan has zero trust in Allah or anybody else. They're incapable of trusting. Prophet Muhammad had greatest trust in Allah and trusting by default. He was trusting. Now, I have a very, very common saying. I like it very much. I said, I would rather regret trusting somebody than not trusting somebody. By default, it was in me from childhood. By default, I trust people. But not the second time. Why? Because Prophet Muhammad do not get bitten from the same snake called toys. So that's stupidity, to be dancing around the snake hole that you were once bitten from. And Islam is about being smart, not stupid. But first time, if you do not trust somebody, you are making Islam, you are oppressing him. By default, you have to be trusting. As a matter of fact, the word mu'min means trusting. We're born trusting people. So if we cannot trust somebody, that means something went wrong. Dhalala, the cognitive dissonance that was planted on us by Shaitan is playing game. So another feature of Shaitan, he orders people to meet his element. On the other hand, Prophet Muhammad said, you have to treat with kindness. It's the exactly opposite. I mentioned that the Shaitan is incapable of respecting anybody. Shaitan always pollutes. It's called fasad. Shaitan does not create anything. His agents cannot create anything. In Surah 16, verse 17, Allah said, the one who creates and who doesn't, can they be saved? Allah is the only creator. That's what Al-Khaliq means. There is no other creator. So only thing Shaitan can create is fasad. Prophet Muhammad never polluted. Shaitan never listens to anybody. Prophet Muhammad always listened to people. One time, slightly ignored somebody, the blind man came to him. Allah chastised him. Allah pointed it out in a surah for everybody to see. That's how important it is to listen. Shaitan never does any research. He knows everything. That's the narcissistic mentality. Never does any research. If he did, how could he defy Allah? How could he decide that genes are better than humans? Who told him that? Where did he get that knowledge? He just made it up. Shaitan always makes up this research right up front. Why does he do that? Because he has an agenda. Prophet Muhammad always did research. Even at one time, he could not answer, so he waited for revelation. We know that story. He would not randomly answer people or give decision without research. Shaitan never does self-reflection. He is incapable. So that's a Shaitanic feature. Prophet Muhammad always did self-reflection. Shaitan never forgives. Prophet Muhammad always forgave. As a matter of fact, he said, forgiving is the best option you can have. Forgiving as in completely forgetting. Shaitan always asks misleading questions. Every question Shaitan asks, we call that Bani Israel question. We'll discuss about it later also. Every question Shaitan asks is misleading. It does not, no matter what answer you give, it will get you into a rabbit hole. Prophet Muhammad always asks guiding questions. Or answer to those questions will always make you closer to Allah. Shaitan never corrects himself or seeks guidance. Never, ever. Prophet Muhammad always sought guidance. So how do you do that? By reading Quran. You can talk to Allah. Just don't make up. It's there. Allah's communication is already there. Shaitan always hides facts. And that's kufr. Kufr means hiding. Kufr means covering up. Always. Prophet Muhammad said, you have to seek truth. You have to seek out facts. This is an obligation. He called it fard. Shaitan is the epitome of pride and hubris. And Prophet Muhammad is the epitome of humility. Shaitan, through announcement, he causes cognitive dissonance, lust, and fallacy. People become stupid with Shaitan. Prophet Muhammad, by contrast, promoted conscious thought and self-restraint, orders to change natural traits of everything. He claimed that. Prophet Muhammad ordered to preserve natural traits of everything. Exactly opposite. Shaitan hates to be questioned, Have you talked to a narcissist? They get offended. If you ask them some question, they say, why are you asking? Prophet Muhammad loved to be questioned. Every day he would come, say, do you have questions? Do you have questions? And even his book of hadith is called Question and Answer, Book of Questions. The problem with all this is we create a perception of Allah which is false. Allah said that I am to my slaves what he thinks I am. And this is very damaging for people who cannot fathom Allah to be kind, Allah to be forgiving. If you think Allah is mean, he's going to be mean to you. Because he said that explicitly. If you think Allah is forgiving, Allah is not going to let me down, he will not. He said it. So it's time to have the correct perception of Allah. He gave all the names, 99 of them. All of them are Rahman, Rahim, all these good things, godly qualities. No, Allah defined himself. Why do you need to define him something else? We have this perception of shaitan and we put that on Allah. So sure enough, if you do that, Allah will be like that for you. So on the other hand, if you try to go closer to Allah, he will come even closer to you. So number one, how to fight dhalala? Solution is very simple. Use akal. You have to ask, why am I doing this? We always take pride in asking, why did Allah do this? Why did Allah do this? For everybody else, we are asking why. We should ask, why am I doing this? My purpose of creation, Allah said it, is to obey Allah with love. So if that's my creator telling me, who am I to ask, why is he doing this? That's not my job. My job is to obey him with love, lovingly. So the question I should be asking, why on earth I'm doing this, whereas my job description says I'm supposed to obey Allah with love? Another question to ask is, would Prophet Muhammad do this? How would he do it? Would he do this? And I'm doing it? Does this action bring me closer to Allah? Very simple question. If you do that, you can fight off dhalala. You can fight off cognitive dissonance. Number two, how to fight lust for money, sex, and control. Again, use akal. It means, why do I need it? Why do you need money? Most of the time, people cannot tell what's the need for. If you ask this question, would you be crazy about making $1 billion? Why do you need that money? How will you spend? Sex control is the same. What would you do with the control? What do you do with the sex? Nothing. How much will satisfy you? And of course, the answer is very clear. It's nothing to do with anything logical. And if you really need, ask Allah. I need money. I need halal sex. I need control because my life is out of control. Ask him. So it's very simple. He's the one who controls everything. He's the one who can give you peace. Why are you asking peace from shaitan? What is the logic? The third one, how to fight order to mutilate animals. Again, use akal. Remember, for every action, there's a related hadith as the guideline. For anything, tell me which action you're going to take, I'll tell you there's hadith. Use my phone. Ask yourself what happened to my Rahma. So you want to mutilate animals? What happened to my Rahma, right? I was born with it. Allah said so. What happened to my empathy? Why am I feeling this way? Is it from my past Or is it because I'm reliving my tormented past? We talked about last week that my classmate, he said he was angry at God because his father died when he was 5-year-old or something like that. What kind of nonsense is that? Prophet Muhammad did not even see his father. His mother died when he was 6. His grandfather died when he was what, 10, 12? So what? You cannot be angry at Allah. He created you. Where is your thankfulness that you have a crack on going to heaven? So anytime you are facing any of this compulsion, ask yourself, what happened to my logic, man? Before I go to number 4, which is changing all artificial to all natural to artificial, I would like to have this. I have a YouTube video on this age SSA degradation, and it's very important to have one more discussion on this. H stands for honey. That's honey is what? Real source and real process. Sugar, the next one, real source, sugar cane, but artificial process, and it is damaging. See, with honey is a cure for mankind. Allah says so. Sugar gives you diabetes, right? So Shaitan created this one, artificial process. Then this says, oh, you're getting diabetes, so I'm going to give you saccharin. Real old source is petroleum. It's not even food. Then the process is artificial. See how it is changing? Aspartame is a neurotoxin. So saccharin is giving you cancer, so I'm going to give you aspartame. So you don't get cancer. But what happens? Your brain freezes because it's a neurotoxin. It's not very difficult to figure out. Just search who made it. It has both artificial source and artificial process. This degradation is in every discipline. And we see that. But nothing from politics to medical science to education, engineering, every aspect of life, this degradation has happened. We have moved from natural to artificial, but nothing more consequential in akal or in thought process. Remember, Shaitan attacks the thought process first, and sure enough, that's the result. So this is the metaphor. We have honey on the top, and we'll discuss that later, but then we fell to sugar, saccharin, aspartame, and then nothing. And you end up going to hell with this degradation. What it increases is jahiliya, your failure, your ignorance in everything. On the other hand, we have honey. This is all natural, and you have different levels of honey. I jokingly said that dark amber is like the best quality of honey, and I call that dark empath. The extremely empathetic people who can see it clearly. So what happens here on the upside, we start off with Iman. Everybody has it. We're born with it. That's why every child is born Muslim, so to speak. Because we have all these godly qualities. Then we can add different levels of ihsan. Ihsan is what? Your ability to pray to Allah as if you're seeing Him. Remember we talked about mukhlis? Those are sincere guys, sincerest. It's so sincere that you do things as if you can see Allah. That's the ultimate level. But even if you do things as if you know that Allah is seeing you, which is true, then the avert sins. That's the path Allah wants us to travel. Closer to Allah, closer to Allah. And the quality of honey should go up. And I came across this word, shahad. It means pure honey. This is the honey that is not touched, like in the honeycomb, and the most unadulterated. So imagine this: you have honey in the city areas where the flowers have pesticide and fertilizer, who knows what. On the other hand, you have flowers from the desert or the forest; they are pure. So we should be competing in going in the quality of honey. Instead, we settle for sugar and saccharine aspartame. And this is the problem. Everywhere we have opted for worse and worse option in terms of artificial. So let's see how HSSA degradation has affected us. It's in everything. We have water, then we have purified water, so-called purified. We use UV, chlorine, fluoride, even aspirin they're talking about. Then we have distilled water, ultra pure water. They're all more toxic. We have in clay. Clay is a natural cleaner. Then we have soap with inorganic sodium hydroxide. Then soap with synthetic oil. It's worse. Then soap-free soap, which is even worse. Then we have hand sanitizer, 97% alcohol, and carbon tetrachloride, the dry cleaning, progressively becoming worse. Even intoxicants, which is haram, right? We have organic wine, which is haram. We have made worse non-organic grape wine, that's worse. Of course, we have spirits, whiskey, even worse. Synthetic alcohol, even worse. Pharmaceutical drugs, and nobody says pharmaceutical drugs are haram, even though it's actually four steps worse than organic wine, which is haram. You see how dhalala has said take effect? Nobody says this. This degradation, nobody sees that pharmaceutical drugs are a lot more haram than organic wine. Even same with hashish and opium. Can you imagine? We have cocaine, we have fentanyl, we have pharmaceutical drugs. Again, the worst kind is pharmaceutical drugs. And nobody sees that at all. They say, well, of course it's halal. Degradation energy, we have natural fire, we have natural gas, electricity, microwave. Microwave blows up 97% of the nutrients from our vegetable. Even in degradation in immunity booster, we have natural immunity, we have 2 days at birth, mother's milk, honey, milk, organic lifestyle, natural immunization. And then we made it artificial, more artificial, and now we are injecting with pure poison. Degradation in energy, we have fire from cow dung, wood, coal, then we have natural gas, and natural gas has toxic chemicals in them to process them. We have electricity, and we have microwave, progressively getting worse. And we end up actually nuclear. Imagine that. Degradation in agriculture, we have organic fertilizer, we have chemical fertilizer, we have chemical pesticide, we have GMO, progressively getting worse. Degradation in food, milk, no vaccine, antibiotic, grass. Then we have pasteurized, artificial heating process, unnatural vaccinated, antibiotic infested cow and machine drawn, vitamins added, blah, 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 continuously becoming worse. Chemical pasteurization, removal of enzymes, and the addition of artificial vitamins and calcium and artificial food, genetically modified, and all this scheme. Even in medicine, of course, we have natural remedies, honey, black seed is given by Allah and Prophet, then herbs, hijama, they are all discarded now. They're replaced with sugar, alcohol-based herbs, processed molestated, then extracted components, sourced and processed, contaminated, then even getting worse, artificial mass production of synthetic chemicals, both source and process. So today, there is no natural medicine at all. As a matter of fact, no doctor can give natural medicine without having his or her license revoked. Even in metallurgy, and we have another presentation, the entire presentation on this aspect in mining and metallurgy. Degradation, even in warfare, just unbelievable degradation. You can look it up. All this degradation has a driver, and it's the money god. So remember, Shaitan invoked desire, the lust for money, for sex, control, and money itself. That's the driver of this degradation. So money god has this trinity: money, sex, and control. And this is the driver. After you lose Akko, this becomes your driver. Of course, none has many meaning because all these are part of color. You can kill yourself, but you cannot change anything. So how to fight addiction to artificial? Use Akko again. That means the source of this addiction. You have to find out, where did it come from? How did I come to this level? Which SSA, HSSA, and degradation happened, and when did it happen? Artificial substance, cigarette, alcohol, drug, pharmaceutical drug, food, health product, tattoos. Which alcohol? Like, what prompted you to become so stupid? Why? Then we have artificial energy, artificial light, TV, video, YouTube, TikTok, website. They're all addictive and they're all artificial in every way possible. They are physically harmful, they are emotionally harmful, they are psychologically harmful. There's nothing good in them. When it comes to artificial everything, artificial sex, artificial porn, internet, self-mutilation, companionship, everything is artificial. Nowadays, they're talking about by year 2030, the majority of women will marry a robot. Of course, Saudi Arabia already declared that the first robot citizen was from Saudi Arabia. Also, Saudi Arabia uses the biggest user of Viagra. Most important part of the number 4, which is everything artificial, from everything natural to everything artificial, you have to have a reset. You just cannot arbitrarily change one item at a time. You have to have a complete reset. And how does it work? You have to recognize how it got triggered. When is the first time? What excuse did you use to fall into this trap? You have to recognize that. You have to recognize the whole path. I was born honey. How did I become aspartame now? Which process? And now you have to go back to the honey standard. 3 conditions apply. Actually 4 or 7. Find out. Doing tawbah means returning to Allah. Do the reset. First, you have to abandon the sin. You stop right now. I'm smoking. I'm not going to smoke. I'm taking drugs every day. I'm not going to do it. Pharmaceutical drug or any drug. Stop right now. Then you have to have sincere remorse. This is where the place being sincere comes into play. You have to be true to yourself. Nobody's there. You don't need to go to a priest and confess. Just yourself. Say, what the heck happened to me? How could I be so stupid? You have to have real remorse. Then you have to have a resolve that I'm going to change. I'm going to change my environment. If I got into a mess because I was going to a bar, if I got into a mess because I was hanging out with his friends, because I got into a mess because I was visiting certain website, stop them right now. You have to have the result. I'm going to move out of this city. I'm going to get out of this place. I'm going to have no friend rather than hanging out with the bad friends. I have to change my environment. It's very, very important. And there are lots of hadiths regarding this. Then you seek forgiveness. After doing all this, that's part of sincerity. You cannot just simply say, forgive me, and go back to the same thing. You have to do everything possible to change, to show Allah that you are sincere about it, you are serious about it. Then you ask Allah for forgiveness. You ask Allah to swipe it clean. Allah likes nothing better than that. Any time you have sinned and you have asked for forgiveness sincerely, your status is better than what it was before you sinned. Number 5, restoring rights. So you stole somebody's money, you return it if possible. Because Allah does not forgive somebody else's rights. Right? You have been nasty to somebody, you ask for forgiveness directly, if possible. For sure, you have to repent before death for everything. It's a wholesale repentance. Most importantly is the sincerity. You remember we talked about mutilate. That's the sincere group. So I have this final set. Before doing anything, you have to ask, why am I doing this? Is it to please Allah? If it is yes, you get one reward just for making the intention. If the action is completed, you get 10 times reward. On the other hand, if the answer is no, it's not to please Allah, I'm pleasing my ego or I'm pleasing somebody else who is not Allah's best slave, then even then, if your action is not completed, you have nothing. You actually regret, you get a reward. Even if you have done the action, you regret, you get a reward. See how that's how merciful Allah is. Then you continue to be abstinent from that sin. You do your regret, you do a tawbah, and you put yourself. Then you actually do that for sake of Allah, not because you got caught. Then get 10 times reward. What else do you know? So on final thing, ask real questions. What are real questions? How am I going to become closer to Allah? Because that's your purpose. Your purpose of creation is to obey Allah with love. So how am I going to do that? That's why there is no way you can avoid asking questions. You have to ask questions because who's going to tell you? So if you ask real question, where do you look? In Quran and Hadith. We don't have prophet nowadays, but if you know somebody with ilm, it's a good idea. But best way to seek knowledge is from Quran and Hadith yourself with the intention of pleasing Allah. Then Allah will guide you. And most importantly in this, avoid Bani Israel questions. Bani Israel questions have false intention. They never guide you. And what is a Bani Israel question? It has underlying false premise. It's like asking somebody that, does your mother know you're gay? It assumes that he's gay. So no matter what answer he gives, it's wrong-headed. And quite often we ask Bani Israel question all the time. So the final slide, no matter what you face, if your intention is good, you always verify. Somebody told you something in 49:6, Allah tells you, you verify. And you find out whole history, including your own past, to seek the full knowledge. So who has full knowledge? As a matter of fact, I remember a conversation with the former vice chancellor of Dhaka University. That guy said, he said, PhD in Islamic history. I said, oh, that's very good because knowledge is in history. Knowledge is in Islamic history, right? That idiot actually said that in front of on German and on American so-called experts, he's foolishly said Oh no, knowledge is in world history. That idiot who has a PhD in Islamic studies, Islamic history, does not know the Quran is the only book that has world history. No other book has. And yet, in front of the kuffar, he told blatantly in front of me, and he knows me. They invited me. He knows me, and yet he said, no. Knowledge is in world history, as if that idiot does not know the difference between world history and Islamic history. Islam is the only history, that only thing that started from Prophet Adam. Islam started with the creation of universe. And that idiot is telling me that Islam is not world history. Anyway, you have to have the whole history, and only Quran has that. Before you decide anything, you have to go through this process. And that's an order from Allah. Verse Quran 17, Surah 6, 17 and verse 36, Allah clearly said, do not do anything unless you have full knowledge. See, you're better off doing nothing than spewing out decisions. Allah doesn't want your decisions. He wants your action. And the most important action is to anyway, that completes this
video. This is a sneak peek file.